Good viewer, you are watching Xirtus. This
How's it going? What's up from Africa? Oh, let's do the Africast song for a second. Let me find it because I feel like when you've got an Africast song, you got to use it, right? That's
A young man can never see, even when he climbs up in a tree. Water may cover the footprints on the ground, but it does not cover the words of the mouth.
how you
Until
been, man?
lions have their own historians,
Uh,
accounts of the hunt
been
will
great,
always
been great.
celebrate the
I've been
hunter.
pushing, not giving up, pressing forward, and hoping for the best.
I feel like the level of happiness of African music is directly proportional to the amount of suffering that the New World Order makes Africans experience. You know, like that music sounds about as happy as I feel like Nigerians are hungry this week. It's like as hungry as you could be because I mean, I don't know if everybody knows this. I think we know in America that the dollar's lost crazy amounts of its value. So you can only imagine if the dollar is worth a quarter of what it was 4 years ago.
Yeah.
What's it like in Africa? Africa's known for having rapid inflation rates, and how does that impact
Uh,
life?
es- Especially a country like Nigeria, where the inflation rate is very hyper and uncontrollable.
Yeah, imagine
Imagine,
me coming and telling you, "Oh my God, America, we have our quarter the value of our money," and you're like, "That's cool. I wish we had the quarter the value of our money." Like, what's the inflation rate in Nigeria? Like 10,000. It's so crazy.
it's a very crazy one. It's a crazy one because I think by this time last year, we were discussing, and the rate of dollar to one, I mean, the rate of naira to $1 was around 600, but right now it is floating between 1,600 to 1,500. From
Wow.
500 naira, from 600 naira is now around 1,500 naira. That's how crazy it is, and the inflation rate is so high,
So that's
and
like
people.
triple in a year, basically.
Yes, yes. The current administration um, did so many things and abolished so many policies which have affected the naira very, very drastically. And I think around 3 weeks ago, yeah, there was a protest in Nigeria. I don't know if you saw it on the news. Hunger.
You think the Americans are paying attention to anything other than their own stomachs? I wish they were, but what's the name? What's the name of this protest? It's I think the Hungry
Pro-
Protest.
yes, yes, that's right. That's right. That's right.
The
The hungry.
Hungry Protest. That's
Yes,
pretty. That's pretty hardcore. That I mean,
it's
it's
crazy
what do we
one.
want? What do we want? Not to die of hunger. When do we want it? We really don't want to die of hunger. That's
You
I think
know,
a pretty serious. That's pretty serious. Yeah.
that's crazy. That's crazy. I mean, a man cannot be thinking of social development, spiritual development, and other kinds of development if he's hungry. You
Right.
know,
A guy's got to focus on the rice he can get. And so also is rice common or do you get most of your local food or is China selling rice? Are you is Nigeria buying a lot of rice? You know, what's the deal with rice? Is it something that
yeah,
you guys eat?
we have our local food. We produce rice, but
Okay.
yeah, because of the cost of fertilizer and other machines for
Right.
to boost the production, it is not sufficient for us as a people to consume. So
Right.
when the production is very expensive, definitely the farmer or the producer is going to make sure that he makes his profit by raising up the price of the goods and services. So that is affecting us too. I mean, we buy fertilizer from foreign countries like China and Europe and even some American countries. But the rates, the amounts at which farmers are buying some of this, fertilizer are very, very, very high. So
Right.
if you use that, if you produce, it will also affect the consumer who is going to buy it at a very high rate. So at the end of the day, collateral damage, we are all in it.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of the example I have in Egypt in the 20th century. I think it's like 1905, 1890 to 1920, Egypt
Yeah.
was one of the more powerful Western trading countries in
Yeah.
Africa at that time. And because they were tricked in by the Abyssinia Bank through the royal family into a banking debt, in order to pay off their banking debt, Egypt
Mm.
had to grow a lot of food for other countries. So Americans got really comfortable with Egyptian cotton, right? And we used to put it on everything. These trousers are made of Egyptian cotton, which just means that they
Yeah.
were enslaving Egyptians. And also there's a Turkish tobacco. Well, we have the Egyptians growing the tobacco and then making Egyptian coffee, right? Ethiopians were growing the coffee. At a certain
Yeah.
point, there was so much export that there wasn't enough domestic product to feed the Egyptians, and they
Yeah.
couldn't afford to grow their own food because they had
Okay.
such a crazy international debt. And you look at people like, today, China is in Nigeria. China's in every country. But when China comes in and they say, hey, we'll help you grow rice, just buy our fertilizer and our equipment.
Yeah.
Do you feel like, I mean, how do you feel about that? What do you feel about
I
China
mean,
and the West and anybody who comes into Nigeria and says, we're going to just sell you something that'll save your life?
I mean, a country like Nigeria, whose major challenge is food. You can imagine that over 70% of our arable land are used for cash crops such as cocoa, rubber, which are exported to foreign countries like Europe and America for their, production. And the farmers who are willing to farm, they don't have enough land to farm because most of this land the government have given out to foreigners to produce what they need as raw materials, to run their whatever they are running. I mean, the Chinese, I mean, they are taking opportunity of what the Europeans and the Americans have been enjoying for decades. So they see it
Right.
as
Do you know how
it is
much
their.
Nigerian coca market's worth? I think it's like $1 billion a year of Nigerian coca. Coca, so much coca comes from Nigeria now. So much coca because they
Yeah.
can essentially get, even though it's from South America, they can build an entire infrastructure and they can pay people even less than they do in South America.
Of
So
course.
it's and then, but how much does coca cost? Organic coca in Denmark for some rich lady, it's gonna be like $100, $200 for a little box of chocolate, right? So
Of
they're
course.
making all of this crazy money, and then where's it going?
But you can imagine. I mean, it's like you are living in an ocean, but you are thirsty of water. You don't have water to drink, despite
That's a great.
having river in your own
That's
house.
exactly it. You're living in the water. You're living in the ocean, but you're thirsty for water. That's so real.
It's a crazy reality. I mean, talking about the Chinese, I think, again, imagine the foreigners like the Chinese coming into Africa and they treat Africans like slaves. It's crazy. They come, they disguise to be helping us, but at the end of the day, they only collaborate with the government to impoverish the people the more. So the Chinese, they just, like I said, they are into enslaving Africa in disguise. And our government borrows so much money, so much trillions of dollars, that in fact that we cannot pay back for years to come. And this have also drastically affected the naira. The whole issue is compounded. Europe's are in America. I mean, Europeans, the American, the Chinese, they are all in need. Everybody is, taking their fair share of the African, resources to, um, grow their economy, while we here still searching for food, looking for food. Imagine. So it is a very crazy reality, and nobody seems to understand. And this crazy reality that is bedeviling the people of Africa, it has dragged and led so many people, so many young Nigerians, especially, who to be very desperate. I mean, eh, we have bad names all over the world right now because of what the government have pushed many people to, and it is not everybody that can suffer with dignity. It's not everybody that can take suffering and endure it with so much patience and dignity. And that is where philosophy has been helping me all these years, because despite the challenges, despite so many things, but philosophy has kept me going, because imagine the Stoics philosophy, the Socratic philosophy, and other forms of philosophy. They have actually kept me going to keep my head up. Despite the fact that I need to survive, but I try to make sure that I don't do crazy things that will tarnish my image and diminish my soul. So that's
Have you seen, do you know who Leni Riefenstahl is? She was a German woman in the 1930s that helped the Third Reich in Germany make propaganda movies. They helped the Germans make a propaganda movie that made I find it interesting because when we think of like the Germans during their, like the Third Reich, um, we think of this movie called Triumph of the Will because it's a
yeah,
big, strong man movie, right? But it's at a time when the Germans they'd lost everything. They'd been forced to pay off debts to every other
yeah,
country, so they couldn't eat, and they had capital and food. It was very similar to what was going on in Nigeria today, very similar to what's going on, like a conquered place. Like you look at Ireland during the potato famine. They're forcing them to grow potatoes from Peru.
yeah,
They don't let them grow their local crops. They don't let them
yeah,
fish. They're on an island. They don't let them fish. And so the
yeah,
potato famine, they're killing off these people so they can conquer their
yeah,
land, right? That's what it feels like, pretty straightforward. Anyway, Leni Riefenstahl, after she got done making this movie, which I also think is interesting, a woman had to make a movie about the Superman because
yeah,
who understands the man better than the woman? But she's also a white woman. She went down to Africa and she made a thing called the Last of the Nubians, I think it was called, or the Nubian Empire, essentially last of the Nuba. That's what it's
yeah,
called, and it's a fascinating look at the strength of the African people and the potential of the African. Because you have to think in the 30s and the 40s, there was a lot of Eurocentric racism. And people thought maybe black people can't think straight like the way a white person can. Like there were people who believed things like
yeah,
that. And so she
yeah,
went down and she started looking at all these people and she's like, wow, there's a lot of potential here. I see 2 meter tall warriors. I see women that can carry like their families and their like everything they
yeah,
own and walk for 20 miles if they have to do it. And I think that
yeah,
that also concerned a lot of people because they
yeah,
realized they could either be conquered someday by Nigerians or they have to keep Nigerians at bay. And it looks like that's something that's happened economically, financially for a long time, is an effort
yeah,
to make sure that you don't become self-sustainable. I see the same effort in America and in Europe
yeah,
to serfs. They don't want anyone to become autonomous. That seems like kind of the thing.
yeah,
But there was a documentary I wanted to recommend to people called The Yes Men Fix
yeah.
the World. Have you heard of Yes Men Fix the World?
Not
This was a
really.
this is a group of guys who pretended to be woke economic advisors, and they were just really good at wearing suits and being white guys in suits, and people just believe they really must be some kind of serious job. I mean, who else would dress like that and pretend to be an economic advisor? So
Yeah,
they went into like the World Economic Forum and to all of these economic places and said, if you had slaves, in the 19th century in America, and you had to feed them and clothe them and give them land to live. Well, land in the United States, even in a cotton mill, in a cotton plantation, would be more expensive. And paying
yeah,
an African to live as a slave would be more expensive. So it would be
yeah,
much, much cheaper to just
yeah.
conquer their African country and keep
Of
them in
course.
Africa. This is a crazy documentary
That,
because
that is it. I mean, that is what is still going on. Many African countries, they think they are actually free when in fact they are not free, because the erroneous idea that Africans are subhuman is still ongoing, despite the the rate of civilization that the world have gained for so many years. I mean, the Europeans, the Americans, the Chinese, and so many other parts of the world, so many people up till now, they don't see Africans as human beings equal to them. So they treat people from Africa, they treat them anyhow they like, they use them, they think African are going to be used, to their own advantage, to the detriment of the Africans. So it has been an ancient matter. I mean, even the foreign religions that we have in Africa, the Islam and Christianity, they also had this mentality. So Africans have never been respected anywhere in the world. And I blame this on our ancestors who have not really done enough to protect the heritage of the people. Because I can understand that the world is a survival of the fittest. I mean, you must be at alert and help yourself, because everybody is out for himself at the end of the day, and that is the reality of everything. I mean, Africans in their own country, they are still slaves. I take a country like Nigeria, for example. Nigeria is one of the oil producing country. We have enough crude oil in Nigeria. But hitherto, as I speak with you, Nigeria doesn't own any single working refinery, which is a contradiction.
It's planned. It's planned control.
Yeah,
So when
yeah,
when Britain when Britain created the American colony in the United States, before there was the United States, America, the
yeah.
colonies were allowed to farm cotton, to farm sugar, but not to process it, and they made it illegal to
Yes,
bring equipment to the Americas because they wanted to
yes.
make sure that people were refining and doing. They wanted to ship it back and forth and have all that happening in England,
Yes.
right?
So it's an ancient strategy. It is an ancient strategy
It's
because
just kind of ironic because all of the cool stuff comes from, and I mean like cobalt, nickel, all of the greatest stuff that if you want a computer, you need Africa. There's no way to build a computer without the stuff, and the stuff, all of it comes from Africa.
yeah, I mean, you having crude oil, so much crude oil, but you cannot even refine it. So the cost of transportation right now, it is unbearable because, like I said, I've been at home for some couple of days because I can't afford to pay my transport fare to work.
I want
So
to
it's
bring that up
crazy.
actually. I mean, like, and low key, this is Abiza's. Is this the Bitcoin or is this Ethereum wallet?
Now is I think it's Bitcoin, right?
Yeah, this is the Bitcoin wallet for
Yeah.
Abiza. If you've never donated to a Nigerian prince before, now is your chance. This is a great opportunity. Not to mention, you could also super chat. Any super chats that we get today, I'm gonna just send directly to Abiza because, I mean,
Yeah.
let's get him another flashlight battery and some food, considering what they're doing with the economy right now. And we'll pull up something about that. I want to show people the protests and the economic struggle that's going on because
Yeah.
crazy things are happening. You got underage, tens of other protests going on. There's multiple protests going on in Nigeria right now. Basically, if nobody's eating, it kind of makes sense, right? Like this is out of control, and people's kids are getting kidnapped. Like Nigeria's got everything's going on this week. It's crazy.
It's crazy. It's crazy. I mean, it has to me since I've grown up. I don't know if it is because I was under the tutelage of my brother and his care for so long, but I've never had this so bad
Right.
economically.
People
Yeah,
are
because
talking about a civil war. That I mean, the bishops in Nigeria want regionalism, and in other words, they want direct government in each
yes,
region that so that if you're in the
yes,
Muslim region, you're in the Muslim region. If you're in the Christian region, you're not in the Muslim region. Like they're trying to divide Nigeria now.
yes. I mean, that takes us back again to the
There you
to
go,
the
Abiza. Hopefully, $20 can start you somewhere,
I'm so grateful about that. I'm so grateful.
dude. Five leaf clover. Thank you for helping him out. This helps. I think it's even bigger because it's Nigeria. Yeah.
Thank you so much. I mean, I'm happy already. Andres, I must say that I appreciate you a lot and I'm very, very grateful
That's
for
one thing I
everything.
really enjoy about you. Like the world can be on fire, and then you're just like, it's good to see you.
For everything. I mean, I did not imagine for a second in 2020 that we'll be together for this long. I
Yeah, it's
mean,
true.
yeah, I did not imagine, but things
I would
happen.
have thought when I first met you that we would have hung out way more. The problem being that 2020 happened and COVID and all these things
Yeah,
changed
of
the
course.
world schema a bit. But I feel like I should be in Nigeria, or very least we should be on a boat to Japan, right? There's got to be a way. I just keep saying to
If,
myself.
if I if I see you, I cannot imagine how I will feel because I'm very I'm very anxious about that. Seriously, but again, I think the whole idea of the Nigerian state built on a false foundation and a very deceptive foundation from the beginning, because when you look at Nigeria, here is the map. You see the northern region, who are predominantly Muslims, minority are Christians. You come to the southern region, who are predominantly Christians, the minority are also Muslim. So, and these people, they have their respective history and different history, different culture, their way of life. You know, it is my opinion. I am an African. This is not to say that the African people are not capable of sophisticated reasoning, but the kind of government that the world, is into right now, I do
Right.
not think.
You seem to accuse them of being both capable and culpable.
Yes, yes. I say this because, you know, things work for people in different ways, and what works in America or in Europe might not work in Africa. I think the problem we have in Africa was our leaders trying to buy into every ideology, every philosophy, every principle that was foreign, and that was our problem started from. I remember the former president, the first president of Ghana, Kwame Nkrumah. I studied his philosophy, where he discussed about conscientism. He called his philosophy conscientism, when he was trying to say that our approach to foreign things should be pragmatic and should be purposeful, so that if we are going to accept things from America, from Europe, from China, our accepting these things has to be, purposeful. So we don't just accept things just because they are foreign, and that is the problem we have in Africa. We believe that anything that is foreign is going to also work here. It's not like that.
Right. This is kind of exactly what Khrushchev was saying in the Soviet Union. He was like, "Look, we should have kind of a chance to investigate American things, and if we like them, build our own versions, build our own more Soviet versions of them. So, like, let's have an amusement park, but let's not make it exactly like Disneyland. I think that that's fair. And you can also look at Fidel Castro, right, who was saying, hey, maybe we should be a little bit more careful about about copying everything America does, and even maybe is blessed by the embargo because it
Yeah.
kept Pepsi products and Will and Grace out of Cuba, right? So maybe isolationism. I mean, we talked about Japan a second ago. Japan was isolating itself because it tried open borders and was nearly destroyed in the process. Maybe you do
Yeah.
need a certain amount of boundaries.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, there are
Bro,
so many.
memory man, you're killing
Yeah.
it today. Thank you for helping.
I'm grateful.
Everything's going to Abiza today, just so you know,
I'm
because like
I'm I'm grateful. I mean, um, talking about the problem that we have in Africa, and so many things that we are accepting that are un-African to us. The Eurocentric worldview of so many Africans have contributed to the problem we have in Africa, because talking about democracy, for example, democracy is foreign to us. Even if our own kind of government cannot be, said to be democracy, but it was working for us. It was working. So just because something was working for the Americans and the Europeans doesn't necessarily mean that it was, supposed to work for us, because we have a different culture, we have a different understanding of spirituality, our way of doing things, our way of thinking, you know, was very different, because definitely uh, we know so many things are relative. Your environment, the kind of experience you have shape your reality. You get. So many things have affected the Africans, but I think our greatest predicament and our greatest mistake was thinking that whatever works for the Europeans and the Americans was supposed to also work for us. African spirituality was very deep, and the
right,
African government and African food, everything African was directly connected to the spiritual reality. So there was no separation between the spirit and the physical. They were all one, you know. But the Europeans and the Americans, they try to separate these two. They try to separate religion from relationship from different things. But the American, they don't separate reality. Reality is a whole. So, but our problem started when we started trying to separate things. We tried to separate, demarcate things. We left monism and we tried to look at for, okay, individual, individual reality began to matter more than the community reality.
Do you
So
think it's
that's
kind of a do you think it's kind of an illusion? Because I think of when I think of America, and when you say that, I do see what you're saying. Like, we do have an Atlanticist division between the spirit and the material. Someone studies material, someone studies spirit. But
yeah,
when I think of America and like the idea of the American ideology, I think of masonry. I think of the occult, spiritual connections that tie them together. I mean, every American president, George Washington in his little cute Masonic apron, right?
yeah,
These are spiritualists, and Masonry was called the Moorish sciences because they
yeah,
thought they were studying like Hermes being of the Nubian Kerma Empire, or maybe of Kemet, right? So African Kemet. So if that's
mm,
the case, then the Masons even consider themselves a secret, not necessarily publicly, but a
yeah,
secret spiritual integration organization that's integrating spirit in all things. And so
yeah,
then it seemed to me that every culture is being convinced of a lie. Like, they're like, well, of course, like, that doesn't work.
yeah,
Materialism without spirituality doesn't work. But it's not working in
yeah.
the West either. In the West, we have a secret occult spirituality.
Of course, of course, of course. I do. I know about that. But sometimes it is secret. It is secret. People don't do this and make it public and try to force it
Yeah,
that
it's true.
everybody, yeah, and everybody must do it. I mean, uh, for example, in Africa, when you want to become a leader, when they want to swear a president in, if the president is a Muslim or if the president is a Christian, they bring out the Bible or the Quran, depending on your religion, you come and swear an oath that you are going to be true and faithful to the constitution and the law of the land. But in our traditional society, they bring out some voodoos relating to our traditional religion, and you swear to the spirit that you are going to be true. And one thing I notice when it comes to the African traditional religion is that when you swear that you are going to do something and you refuse to do it, that curse is going to follow that person. Definitely it will happen. But when the Christians and the Muslims, when they swear that they are going to do something and they don't do it, nothing happened to them. You understand? So in that way now, people begin to see it as, in fact, instead of the foreign religion that we have to be helping us, they are even killing our government the more. So, and these politicians, they are exploring their options to making sure that they use this religion to their advantage, so that because they know that the African man is somebody who is embracing, who can easily believe, who can easily accept things. So instead of fighting them, protesting against them, and trying to fight for your right, they tell you, no, you just be patient. God is going to do everything. Everything that's happening is about God, and blah blah blah. Your reward is in heaven. You understand? And it is not everybody that is mentally capable enough to reason, to understand, because whether we believe it or not, poverty does affect thinking. It affects the mind very well, because when you are not materially stable, when you are hungry, your thinking is going to be distorted sometimes. Imagine a poor man who is very poor, and the politician come and give him food and say, now I'm going to give you this meat, and the poor man is very hungry, and all you need to do is to vote for me during the election. So when you give them one square meal in a day, they go to the polling unit and they vote for the politician that have given them. So they don't care about the character, they don't care about the credibility of the politician. The politician abuse religion, that use his money, everything. So in fact, they even want people to be poor. They want people to even get poorer, because the more people are poor, the more easy you can control them. The more
It's
it will be very
sustainable.
easy.
It's a sustainable crop of people. Yeah.
Yes. So that is it, because the poverty in Africa it is for the advantage of the elite. They are using it to their advantage to win election, to promote their whatever agenda that they have. So even when they come and tell you they want to solve the problem of the economy and all that, it is all false. It is all empty promises. Some of us who have had the opportunity to go through school, even if we did not have a very quality education, but we try to struggle on our own to read and understand things and other things that are going on in other parts of the world. It is only few of us who are able to, actually think about some of these conspiracy and say, no, this is not how it is supposed to be. This is how it is supposed to be. But imagine somebody who have never traveled, who have never been to school, who doesn't even know the meaning of democracy, doesn't even know how things work in other places. You know,
Oh, and
such
and
person.
especially forgot how things used to be in the home. See, like this is what we did in America. Like if you arrest everybody's father, if you kill everybody's parent in a war, like you can conscript someone for battle, or you can arrest them, and you can make
Yeah,
sure that you break the tradition tie, and that way the
yeah,
history is broken, so you don't have your tradition, and so what you do is you pick up on whatever is being synthesized around you, which is that
yeah,
melting pot, but the melting pot burns off everything else, so
yeah.
you get a state culture, a completely prescribed culture instead of a described culture, one that's
Yeah.
created for you.
So
I had a question also. I was looking at. Let me get to it. The 6 Polish students. Did you hear about this? So I just talked to one of them. There was 6 students and a lecturer who were in a detention, freed in Nigeria, and this happened all this week, right before the protests
yeah,
happened. Did you know anything?
yeah,
Have you heard about this part? Do you know anything about this? Did this make news for
yeah.
you?
Yeah, due to the frustration of so many Nigerians during the protests, so Nigerians were calling for the military to take over.
Yeah.
And so many Nigerians, they think and they believe that the Europeans and the Americans, they are the one killing Africa, not Russia. Since they say sometimes when you do not know the intention of somebody, when you don't know a particular person as an enemy, you I tend to embrace the person. So they want to embrace Putin, they want to embrace Russia because they want Putin to come and help them, because
Right.
due to the investment of the American government and the British government on Nigeria, they just want the system to continue like that, because but people are saying, let Russia come in, let Russia come and help us, let us bundle this government out of our corridor of power, so that the military will take over and let's see how things go. But nevertheless, I do not think that asking for help from any foreign countries is a solution to the African problem. The African people must stand up to their responsibility. They must rise up to their responsibility. It's not about changing the slave masters. It's about the slave changing their mind, changing their ways, and thinking straight for once. I think that would be the solution, instead of calling on Russia to come and aid Africans in their freedom. I mean,
It didn't really work for Angola. I mean, they just
it
got
didn't
China
work.
now.
It has never worked. Any foreign countries who come to a particular country to come and come in the name of freedom to free the people, it is, at the end of the day, it is all about them. It is not really about the people. They don't really care. It is about them. It is about economic agenda. It's about political and military agenda. So these people, they don't care. So I really, really don't agree with some of my compatriots, some of my Nigerian citizens or Africans who think that, yeah, bringing Russia in or bringing Putin in is a solution. It's just like changing your slave masters. You change your slave master, but the situation is going to remain the same. So instead of calling on the foreigner to come and help us, we must think of ways to help ourselves as a people. We must rise up to our responsibility,
Right.
and we need to believe that we can. Since others are doing it, we must. Yes, that
Right.
doesn't mean that we cannot form alliance with other foreign countries. We can, but
It was
be
interesting
at the
because you
top.
had basically, it was like Polish kids that had, I'm not sure if it's true. The story goes that they were detained for having a Russian flag. It might have been
Yes,
that they just had a Polish flag and nobody
yeah,
understood that. However, I wouldn't be surprised at all, considering what we know now about Nigeria and that Nigeria is
yeah,
trying to make
yeah,
alliances with Russia, that you
yeah,
have double agents pretending like who I mean Poles who can speak Russian. They exist. So
Yeah,
I wouldn't be surprised at all if the Nigerians caught on
yeah,
to a conspiracy that was going on, and rather than
yeah,
make a big fuss about it, just had them
yeah,
removed from the country. Right? It seems like there's
yeah.
actually bigger things going on because Russia can, like you said earlier, Russia. I mean, while Russia has oil, Russia does need other things that Nigeria
Of
has,
course,
particularly
of course.
cobalt and other.
Of-
Yeah, so I can
And
see
we
that being a
have
major
what they
war.
need.
Yeah, no one
Yeah.
sees Nigeria as the major war front, but I
I
do.
mean, I mean, yes, during the protest, the people that were flying the Russian flags, some of them were arrested, and some of them were even murdered in the process. Some of them died. As I speak with you, some of them they are still in detention. In fact, even the tailor that was sewing the flag for them, the tailor was arrested with his machine that he was using to produce the
Wow.
flag. And some people have been arrested to be the masterminder of
Wow, so
the whole.
they were making their own flags, of course.
Yeah,
Like I didn't even
yeah.
think about that. They're
They
making
made
Russian flags made in
they,
Africa.
they wanted to provoke the government. They wanted to make the government to,
SOQUEL.
yeah, they wanted to provoke the government to, to awaken them to their responsibility, because the mentality is that the Americans and the Europeans, they are part of the problem of Africa. Because when you read the history of Africa, for example, when you check the history of Nigeria, hardly you will find a particular point in history where Russia were involved in slave trade of Africans. Understand? So since the African did not see Russia as some of the partners in the dealing of slavery in Africa, so many Africans conclude that since Russia is not involved in the slave trade, that means Russians are a good option if we are looking for help. But that doesn't mean because somebody did not get opportunity to do something, does not mean the person will not do that thing if that person is given the opportunity. So to rely solely and believe that Russia is a better option, to me is still not a good thinking as Africans, and I think we should try to do away with that. That is it.
Right. Yeah, I was looking also, what's her name? You can help me pronounce Algero?
Okay, Ajero.
Ajero. Yeah. So,
Ajero.
like the United Nations rapporteur on human trafficking was talking about Nigeria is facing even. I mean, the lower the value of
Yeah,
the currency, the easier it is to buy people. You know,
yeah,
like if there's no money going on, then all of a sudden human trafficking becomes a thing, and
of course.
everyone can joke about what they think of the value of a person is until it's like they're now a slave, right? And then all of a sudden you have to be like, wow, yeah, it would be really advantageous to have a very strong slave, right? Or many of them for very cheap. And not just
Yeah,
for like, because there's people that want slaves in Qatar, to build buildings, right? Like you can export Nigerians, steal their passports, and have them work forever, right? And so this is a thing where we've talked before about if you get too many Nigerians who are educated like yourself to leave Nigeria, then what's left in Nigeria? Well, corruption,
that's it. Yeah,
but also the people that are left that can be exported. They're also valuable people that are just
of
kidnaps, right?
course, of course. There is a whole lot of brain drains going on in Africa right now, especially in countries like Nigeria. We have the population. Nigeria is the most populous country in Africa. Over 250 million people are in Nigeria, which makes Nigeria the most populous country in Africa. You know, right now, the number of Nigerians that are migrating to other countries for survival are very many, and it gets me worried because if everybody run away from the country, who's going to make the country work? Nobody's thinking about that. Everybody's. It's not just a matter of getting the money or surviving, but again, if you run away from your country and because the country is too difficult for you, then who is going to make the country work? When everybody run away, all the capable hands are running away, the doctors, the nurses, they are running away because they are not being paid the amount that they are supposed to pay, but nobody is willing to make sacrifice. At the end of the day, if there are not people who are willing to make sacrifices for their country, that country can, hardly move forward. I speak of my community. I am Benin by tribe. I'm from Edo State, Nigeria. What is popular among my people is the idea that once you have the means, once you are able to, run away from Nigeria, can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Once you have the means, you run away from Nigeria. And sometimes these people don't even travel or migrate to European country by plane. They migrate, through the Atlantic Ocean. You understand? So they pass through the ocean to get to other countries. They don't care. Some of them die on the way. Some of them, are being used. They end up doing prostitute. They end up committing all kinds of crime. I think if you want to understand Africa, if you take Nigeria as an example, as a sample, you can use Nigeria as a case study to understand the whole of Africa. Yes, because all kinds of problems that are going on in everywhere else in Africa, you can't find them in Nigeria. Nigeria is in a very deep mess, and it is not an organized state. I must say that I'm not proud of the problem of Nigeria. But again, like I said, running away from Nigeria can never be the solution to the Nigerian problem. The Nigerians have to wake up and rise up to their responsibility.
Well, you kind of answered something I was going to already ask, but like you can think of Alex Soros, like George Soros and the Open Borders Foundation and Society. His son here, who's kind of become a pseudo celebrity in his own light. I think it's interesting because on one hand, I can say, yeah, dude, I agree, and I think I've pushed for this that we should let countries have their best so that they
Yeah.
can do the best with them. Like I agree with that. But also, I'd have you come visit. I'd go to Japan. I feel like there's a certain amount of cappuccino economy I believe in. And one of the first things that we experienced, you and I, when I was like, yeah, bro, let me just see if I can, because the world's so virtual now. You should be able to apply for a community college. It's like COVID. You could apply for a community college in California. I had a friend who was in a community college class on the internet in in Silicon Valley in one of the nicest schools. But while he was living in Argentina on vacation, and
Yeah.
he was like at a zoo with his laptop. I saw him with his laptop at the zoo having a good day. I was like, dude, you can live anywhere, do anything. That if this guy can do it, and he's not nearly as smart as Abiza, then Abiza should be able to do it. So we tried
Yeah.
getting him like logged into all these things, and you know what they say? They're like, if you log into him for Google, you know what it says? You're from
Yeah.
Nigeria. Get out. You basically, like all of these web services, you're like PayPal will not work with someone from Nigeria. Okay, I
Yeah.
get it. Like there's a track record there, but
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of effort to make sure you have no access to any of the things which have become ubiquitous. And
Yeah.
those are all things that would really help make it possible
Of
for you to start a business, work,
course. Yeah.
trade would be a big one. You guys could have interpersonal bartering trade, which would, with the internet, you wouldn't even need an economy that's paper based. You wouldn't even need your currency. So I get it why Alex Soros, I know it's going to upset somebody, and I hope so, is saying, yeah, you know what? If you're not going to give them Google, then give them floaty boats. Like if you can't get solar panels and wells into the country, then get the cool Nigerians out of the country until at least they can come back with some money once we do something about it. I hate to say it, but is open borders right in that respect? Like I know we just argued against it, but shouldn't it be basically if the country's government is so corrupt and collapsing that you should be able to come and go until it fixes itself? What do you think? Should you starve it out? That's what China's doing. China's starving it out. All these kids, the Bai Lai, have you heard of that? They're the kids who just lie down and let it rot in China.
Yeah. I do not think opening the border and making it free is safe for the country. I mean, it's not nice. No matter what, I don't think that it is fair or it is good for any society or any country to make its border accessible to anybody because people come with different intention. You know,
I gave him the chance, everybody. All right, I'm just saying, and that's an African saying it. Okay,
there are
so
many
I think
ways.
that's the final word.
It's like you living in the house and you open your door for anybody to come in, because you want to help people. Opening the door for everybody to come in, somebody can come with a gun, somebody can come with bombs, somebody can come with different things, and at the end of the day, You're not just only, staking your life, you're also staking the life of your family. So any government that is doing such is not, you know, truthful to the people and helping the citizens of the state. So opening the border cannot be the solution. I see people most of the time they will be preaching everywhere should be free, you should have access to everything. No, it's not like that. You can only legislate on things you know. You cannot legislate on things you don't know. Cannot legislate on the intention of people. You can say, okay, if you steal, this is what's going to happen. If you carry bomb, this is what's going to happen. But the thought of it is already there, and it's not written on the face. It's not written on the forehead of somebody. So if you open the border, you open everything, let anybody come in. A criminal will come in, a soothsayer, a deceiver. People will come with different intentions. So it is better to keep it close. I think
You're
that is
very. I think also you come from a civility, so there's a culture of the difference between a guest and a criminal. And I think in
yeah,
America, it's like kind of it's fading a lot. The
yeah,
idea of
yeah,
civility and with honor and things like that. So it's good
of
that
course,
that exists in Africa. By lie, I was
yeah,
gonna say is the thing going on in China. I kind of just like jumped at it, but I was like, I think about a lot of things at once. The kids in China are you can't just protest, right? Like you know how it is in China. You can get killed for protesting.
of
Um,
course.
or you get
Cecilia,
arrested. I mean, you can get killed anywhere for anything, right? But like, the idea is that the kids realize the safest thing to do is to let it rot. And so by letting it rot, then they can hopefully get to a point where the government just collapses in on itself.
yeah.
Um, it's like it's the new protest. You know what I mean? I don't know. What do you think about like letting it rot? Isn't that kind of something that was tried already in Africa? If like you can't compete, there's no way to make it. Maybe just let it rot. What do you think? What do you think this is going to do to China, but also to the world? Right, Bailan.
Yeah, I don't think pessimism is the way to go. I believe that human being is a dignified being, and he must be taken as such. The human civilization must not be joked with. The human civilization must be taken seriously. I mean, there are a lot of ideas that are going on which I personally do not agree with. There are so many things, and now people are thinking crazy stuff, and sometimes you can't blame them because the government are failing. Letting it rot is not the way forward because that is a fatalistic ideology. I mean, it is not the best ideology for a country. Despite the fact that the government is corrupt, the people who are leading the government, they are from homes. These people, they are from the society, they are from our schools, they are from our community. Before a person is a president, he's first of all a child, he goes through school, he goes through so many processes that other citizens are going through, and then he becomes what he is. So apparently, I think it is the society sometimes that is making these leaders to be who they are, that is, getting things into mess and messing them up, and this thing starts from the beginning. So if we are able to reset the system and set the system right, we will be expecting a better president, we will be expecting better governors and better senator to run our respective countries. But by the time like this, the idea of freedom, for example, the idea of freedom in America and Europe, I think the American, they are sitting on a time bomb. I mean, a keg of a keg of gunpowder, as it is said, because freedom, absolute freedom, cannot exist. But so many people, especially in America and Europe, they think that absolute freedom can exist, even if they don't believe so. But the way they live their life, I think they think that absolute freedom can exist. And it is the freedom that they are claiming for that is because I don't believe that everybody has that equal capacity to conceive freedom in the same way. Freedom is a noble idea, it's a noble aspect of reality, and it is a noble trait of the human civilization. And I think that it is not everybody that has that capacity to manage freedom. That doesn't mean that these people should be enslaved, but what it means, it is the responsibility of the government to, create a system that can, be fair, be just to everybody in a state.
Are you you're familiar though? I mean, this is the thing. That's my only contention. Everything else I agree with. At very least I like it. I like the idea that man is dignified. I've seen examples to the contrary. There are definitely undignified men, you know. I think
Yeah,
nobility, gentry, whatever you call that, that is
yeah,
something really special, you know, that like some people have, but not everybody does. And I'm
yeah,
fascinated by people that don't, that there are animalistic people that are driven by, you know, there are people without depression. There are people that just go through their life like a
yeah,
dog and they like
just
to
like,
walk. It's
yeah,
interesting that the world has so many things. But what I
yeah,
don't see is the idea that this idea that government is supposed to help the people, because
mm,
that seems only true if you have this personal investment. Like a dictator might become a benevolent dictator because it's like being Al Capone. Al Capone fed 120,000 people, right? While the
yeah,
government was collapsed and the police were corrupt and there was no paychecks for them. All of a sudden, Al Capone
yeah,
was paying police and paying people and making sure that the town didn't collapse because he needed the town to exist. And we look back and we call him like this like murderer, even though he never actually killed anybody. They
that
do that a
guy,
lot.
huh?
Yeah, he's the
Yeah,
bad guy because he held things together. But then we put
yeah,
in this corrupt, like Chicago is like one of the most corrupt cities in the United States. Far more people are killed by police corruption and all the things that have happened since Al Capone are
yeah,
detrimentally worse than anything that happened during Al Capone's reign,
yeah,
right? So,
yeah,
I mean, you could say benevolent dictators
yeah,
emerge,
yeah,
but I don't think that a government itself's job is to help the people. A government's job is to manage the state, which is the legitimate source of violence, while the
yes,
state is responsible for extracting wealth to pay off generational debts to international banking cartels. And the international banking cartels, you
yeah.
know, they're the ones
I
who
mean,
want to maybe have people invested in because they treat humans like property. Like a banking cartel owns corn or owns gold or owns Nigerians, right? And then it says we're going to take these Nigerians and we're going to put them all through university, or we're going to put them all through plantation school, train them to be really good for Starbucks. You know, maybe we need them for coffee beans or something like that. Or no,
yeah,
maybe we want all of Japan to be our legal team or something. You know, like they could literally caste system the world this way. And I think
yeah,
that's what governments are really doing. And the
yeah,
more you look at government, it's not like, oh, I elected this government. I made this government. We worked together to establish this. It's not the tribe that ran the government. A tribe is traded with other governments the same way baseball teams and sports teams are trading people all over the
yeah,
world.
yeah.
So I don't
I
know. I agree with you, but I also see why the Chinese, after generations, are finally like, you know what? I'm just going to see what happens if maybe we can starve this beast out, you know?
I mean, when I talk about the government doing the right thing, I think basically I'm talking about then setting up a fair playing ground, an equal level playing field for everybody to strive. Having a good system, a system that has, justice. Where
It benefits. It's
yeah,
grosser mercantilism. You could have a
yeah,
mercantile class, yeah, and all of a sudden your country would be powerful. That's true.
yeah. So that is basically what I mean about that. But I do not think that the government is responsible for solving all the problems in a state because, like you said, the government is an institution, just an institution. We created the government, and we can make it work. At our own level, we must.
You don't think it was the lizard people? Okay, what about the looming danger of docile political opposition? So right now, a lot of changes are obviously coming in Nigeria.
It's a crazy era. Like I have told you earlier, it has not been this bad. Before this, APC is the ruling political party. APC came into existence in 2014. By 2014, so many political parties, they came together, they formed a coalition, and APC was a result of that merger. And Another major political party we have in Nigeria was the PDP. But because these political parties, they lack what I call ideologies, they don't have ideology apart from their hunger and their craving for power, they easily defect from one political party to the other. And when a particular political party wins an election, what happens is that he try to bribe people from the opposition party, the people who are very powerful from the opposition party. He bribe them with positions, he bribe them with money, and then these people come to his political party, and therefore making the other political party to be docile. And when the other political party is docile, there will be no party per se to be, making sure that the government, the political party in power, do the right thing, because nobody will be pointing out the thing that they are supposed to do to them any longer. Because the idea of political opposition is that the citizens have options. You understand? So when the other political party become those, the options of the citizens become very
when they
limited.
coalition, yeah.
Yeah, so that is what is going on. The PDP and the APC, they are the major political party in Nigeria. The PDP have ruled from 1999 to around 2015, and then the APC have started their regime from 2015 till date. But before the APC could knock the PDP out of power, they formed mergers with other political party. But the problem with the present opposition is that its members are so greedy. They are so greedy, like selfishness and all that. So they defect to the other party easily, and they do a lot of things, just to survive, just for money. At the end of the day, like I said earlier, the problem of the African state is very deep and it is fundamental, which is it is all about survivor. People don't care so much about their integrity. Imagine a particular opposition who was opposing the candidate that is now the president very rigorously and fearlessly, and then once the other candidate win an election, the same person who was an opposition becomes a loyalist, becomes a best friend. So what happens to your ideology? It's like Biden and Putin. It's like Biden and Donald Trump becoming best friend after this election. You know, when we all know that they have different ideology and different agenda, and then suddenly they become best of friends. I mean, you should know that something is wrong somewhere. Either one
This
of
is the
them,
thing that concerns me. The horizontal relationships are stronger than the vertical relationships. So
yeah,
if you become a politician and you're in the same club as the other politicians, then all of a sudden being a politician means we're going to share the money and then we'll figure out how to give as little as possible to people. It becomes a serfdom again.
yeah, yeah,
So that's like the thing about government. Like the only way government to me can be what you're saying is if it becomes a machine, if it becomes technology, then you could like so in Africa I did see how much things changed with Google. If you look at Africa 25 years ago
yeah,
and today, a big change is that so much of
yeah,
what
of course.
was in the mail, right? Like
Yeah,
everything went through human hands, no longer
yeah,
goes through human hands. It's all digital, and and everything that they can. That's the only reason Africa is still in the past at all is that they've
yeah,
made sure that those digital systems aren't legal or permitted in parts of Africa. So you're stuck
yeah,
using the human hands, where if it goes, it's kind of like a telephone game. You go through
yeah,
that many people, the
yeah,
chances of one of those people corrupting it in some way, either consciously, subconsciously, with
yeah,
negligence, or for their own benefit,
yeah.
right? So we could easily remove that if we used a government that was an automated system,
Of
but
course.
we have to get rid of the people for that, I think.
That is me. It is the people that create the government. Um, I don't know. How about Binance? So many cryptocurrency platform are banned in Nigeria. They don't work in Nigeria. Like things like PayPal and so many platforms, they don't work in Nigeria. I try to figure out why these things they don't really work in Nigeria. Up to now, I don't really know, because I think is it is an economic strategy, or is it just for security reason? I still cannot really understand.
I feel like it's
So
an economic thing. I mean, I can see why it could be a security thing because wire fraud is more convenient when your government is in on it. And if no one's gonna fight it, like in the United States, if wire fraud's committed, which is what stealing through Bitcoin or some of these like things would be, then the FBI can get involved, and so that becomes like a more serious issue. That doesn't
yeah,
necessarily happen there though.
yeah,
What about monkeypox? I'm sorry, mpox. They're calling it now. Everyone in the United States, this is the thing they're actually hearing about. It's funny. No one in the United States hears about
yeah,
anything else, and all of a sudden it's like, oh, mpox is gonna be the new. We might have. Is this? Did you guys get any news about this? Have you had? I've heard there's been like no
yeah,
deaths.
yeah. We have a lot of issues in Nigeria, and the reason some of these diseases are spreading in Africa is because of our poor health system. And the fact that people just do a lot of things in the name of they want to survive, so they don't even care the repercussion or the consequences whatever they do. Monkeypox, yes, it does exist in Africa, not everywhere, not even in Nigeria, not everywhere in Nigeria. I think in some parts, because of their way of living and all that. Like I speak for my community, for example, I've not heard about that. I've not experienced it, not even somebody close to me. But I think so many people in other communities they do experience it, and it is a very serious case too. Sometimes it spreads. Sometimes you see that the news will go down before you know it. You hear a lot of news flying around the internet. A lot of things happening. So it's crazy. But and again, I think the government they are exaggerating it sometimes just to get the attentions of the world to think that they are working, or to think that they need help from the foreigners, I mean, from the foreign government, because there are some things that the government can solve in Africa, but they exaggerate it so that the foreign countries will come and help the people. I mean, it's also affecting us drastically. I think the issue of monkeypox, like the hunger protest in Nigeria, it's more drastic, it's more severe and more serious than any disease you can think of in Africa. The economic problem of Africa is more severe than the diseases that is going on in Africa. But in a way, it is this all this disease, the kwashiorkor children, all those kind of stuff that you'll be seeing on the internet. But the real problem of Africa is economic, not just health. So it
Right.
is the
And do you
economic
and like as we've seen the economic problem is probably synthesized. Do you think that the Mpox thing, I mean, any problems in Nigeria, they'll often say it's your fault, like, it's your negligence or culturally you just don't take care of keeping, in the West, we know how to keep clean or something like
yes,
that. Do you think that
yeah.
this is true that or do you think it's just a systematic do you think it's on purpose?
I think it is true. I think it is true to a remarkable extent. And I'm sorry to be taking this to viewing this in economic point of view all over again. I mean, even in America or even in anywhere else in the world, when people are poor, hygiene is the least of their problem. Hygiene is the least of their problem. They take anything, they eat anything just to survive. They live, anyhow just to survive. So that is what is happening. It's not that the people themselves they don't have the mental capacity to be clean, but it is just the situation, the environmental situation, the so many other situations that have led to them not being clean. It's not that somebody wakes up in the morning, or maybe if there are some races that wake up in the morning, they say today we are not going to be clean. No, that's not the case. The case is that the problem is that they have occupied their mind with so many things that are so basic, such as survival, you know, to the point that they forget about cleanliness. So that
19
is what.
states.
Yes, NCDC. So that is the problem of the. If you see the kind of river where people are drinking from in Africa, you'll be amazed. You'll be shocked. Even in some countries, you can't even take some of this water for animals to drink. For example, if I want to fetch water, I want to use water to bathe, I go to the stream, I go to the nearby river, a well that is exposed to mosquitoes and everything. This is the kind of way that I'm taking my bait from. Why? Because I don't have options. Not because I'm not clean. It is not because I am not clean. It is because I don't have options. So that is the
Yeah.
problem. So it's a different thing when you have option, then you choose not to, use the option, than you don't have option at all. So that is a problem. But I do agree that there are some people who are not really clean, which is due to their uncivilized way of life, due to their traditional whatever. But generally, everybody in Africa, I mean, people in Africa, they are clean people.
Yeah, it's like it's not that you're not civilized; it's that like that's the only water left now that they've like destroyed the wells or
Yeah,
something, right? Well, that's
yeah.
also kind of interesting because there's been, a kind of a philanthropic. This is kind of hopefully happening right now. There's like a philanthropic boom because it's kind
Mm.
of cheap to give to Africa. And like in Nigeria, my God, it's like if it wasn't cheap before, if it wasn't cheap enough, it's cheaper
Yeah,
now. Trust me, every
yeah,
day it gets cheaper. So
yeah.
one of the things I saw was what's her name? Onodu. Do you know who
Mm.
Onodu is? She got like
Yes.
a huge Mr. Beast jump, like $25,000 or $250,000 or something like that. And there's been a
Yeah.
number of people that are trying to like give to Africa, give to Nigeria. This guy
Of
made a
course.
really funny video about it because Mr. Beast, he built some wells in Kenya, but they
Of
talked about
course.
like what would happen if he went to Nigeria and like how it might go if they like found out about him coming to Nigeria. I don't know. What do you think about that? I don't know. Do you think that it's hard right now to help Nigeria? Like, do you think it's one of those like butterflies in the mud that you would break the wings of to pull out?
I think helping people is a mindset. I know that Nigerians have created many bad images all over the world, which have affected even the way people see us. When people see Nigeria, even the Nigerians who are genuinely suffering, who genuinely need help, they don't help these people because of what some other Nigerians have done to them, maybe in terms of fraud, lies, and all that. So people find it difficult to help Nigerians. Do you understand? But sometimes people do forget that everybody cannot be the same. Everybody cannot be wrong. Everybody cannot be doing the same thing. So I think people find it difficult these days to help Nigerians. But there are people that even if you hurt them 100 times, that mind, that character to help people is just in them. It is part of them. It's just like when you have the mind to help somebody, or maybe you have the mind of giving, even if that person, is in need. Once you have the opportunity, you always do it. But if you do it for political reasons or for whatever reason, or just to earn reward from whatever, you always try to say, oh, I'm not going to help this person, maybe because I don't know if this person is a true beggar, or maybe the person is actually real, this person, things like that. But if somebody have that mind to help, you will not even think of that. You just help anyway. It's just a character, it's just a trait, it's just a virtue.
Right, like it's kind of a funny thing because you're like, everyone. If he's begging, he's a true beggar. It's like if he's in need, and if he's in
Yeah,
need, isn't everybody in need? And
yeah,
aren't you just kind of facilitating the universe, like helping with that need? Like, I mean, really, how's it gonna go, right? I like the one
yeah,
where like if you're walking by a homeless person with somebody and you want to give them some money and they're like, oh, they're probably gonna use it on alcohol, and you're like, yeah, but they're homeless and they haven't
yeah.
eaten and their wife left them and they don't have that dog died. I feel like I could use a drink if I were them.
Of course, of course. I mean, I I genuinely believe that people are finding it difficult to help Nigerians, because I've been on the internet. You hear people talk of the Nigerian prince, the Nigerian prince. I was thinking, what's Nigerian prince all about? What do they mean
Bro,
by
you're a
Nigerian prince?
Nigerian prince. Are you kidding me? You're like such a princely man. It's just you
So,
bring it to a positive place though. I think that like in the 80s there was just the sad thing is that a Nigerian prince scam is it proportional to how dumb somebody in a trailer park in the Midwest who got a letter
yeah.
or on the internet was like, "Oh yeah, all I have to do is give all my money to a bank account and I'll become, wealthy." Like, hey man, like I think the funny thing there is you're scamming a Nigerian. You know how poor people are in Nigeria. That's all money they go to Nigerian. If you're trying to scam a Nigerian prince and you get reverse scammed, that's the universe.
The way people talk about the Nigerian prince on the internet is quite frightening, because what I used to believe and think that the idea of African prince is nobility, is dignity. But when
There
people talk
is.
about when
They
people
don't
talk
say that.
about yeah, when people talk about Nigerian prince online and all that, they think of an internet dude who is doing all kinds of illegal things online. So that is what they think these days. And that is
Well, you know,
affecting
we're trying to help with that. Have you ever seen the Eddie Murphy movie Coming to America? Do you know what that is?
us really.
Oh my god, bro! One of these days, I'm gonna show you this movie. This is like, out of this was like how I was introduced to African princes. I was a little young for the internet scam. When I saw this movie, it was about a guy from Africa who's just got like everything. You know, like he has all the things. He's super
Yeah,
wealthy, and he comes to America, and he's just way out of place, wealthy for all. Like he's too wealthy for America. He's walking around like a king in America, and the Americans can't even handle it because the Americans don't understand civility or royalty or anything. I mean, honestly, it's probably worth it to watch
yeah,
this movie. Also, they made a sequel to it I haven't seen yet, Coming to America 2. So that's
yeah.
probably somebody wants you to see this movie. I mean,
Well,
it's definitely not a movie that is like too realistic, but just the idea that it's not about like a scam artist. And I think a lot of the time I think the whole point is the Americans think he's a scam because they don't
yeah,
understand what's going on.
yeah.
But
Yes, I mean, there are people who are stuck in their own civilization. They are stuck in their own
right.
world. So they don't think wide. They think whatever they hear from their own end, the danger of a single story. So many people have only heard a single story, they have not heard the two sides of the story. And that is affecting the whole truth, all the way,
Well, yeah, I
all over.
feel like if you're trying to get $1 million back from a Nigerian prince, then you're an idiot, or like you're a scam artist trying to, because that's $1 million that could go to Nigerian kids. But if you're just trying to send $20 or $100 to a
Yeah,
Nigerian prince because you want to make sure that they survive because their culture is
yeah,
being destroyed, that how
yeah.
you can't even get scammed. You can't even scam
Yeah, that
yourself.
is that is because that is the reality. I mean, that is reality.
That's what I've been
Because
seeing is these kids in Nigeria. There's a bunch of YouTubers now, and they're just like, "What if I go buy you a meal?" And it's kind of in the
yeah,
vein of what Mr. Beast was doing, which is a good meme actually. Like
yeah,
regardless of what Mr. Beast is doing, here's a dude in Nigeria buying a homeless guy a meal, right, and
yeah,
eating with him. And then hey, people are gonna watch that video. He's probably gonna end up getting a lot of views because a lot like well, how many he got
of course,
1.4 million followers because
of
he fed
course,
a guy. So I think there's a lot of that going on right now in Nigeria too, and that's like that's what I'm seeing also that people don't talk about.
of course, of course. There are a whole lot of things going on in Nigeria that people don't get to see on the internet, because of the poor network system, internet, poor net. I mean, for you to have a stable electricity in Nigeria and in the internet, you need to be have I mean, income, to have a stable income. That is why you see me with this lamp. I bought this lamp, you know, and this can cost me just around, if I evaluate it, just $2. Yeah, the lamp, So, but
But
I
you
have to.
have to keep buying batteries because like, and
Yes,
you're gonna
yes,
have.
yes.
And you're gonna have to
Like,
keep buying water bottles, and I guarantee these water bottles are made. I can tell you right now by Nestle. I can tell by the label that this is a Nestle product. So
yeah, yeah,
your Coca-Cola and Nestle are controlling your water supply, and that's why
of
the Mr. Beast thing is
course,
kind of interesting in Kenya, right? Like he got in a lot of trouble for building wells because that's Coca-Cola's money. You got
of
to think
course,
about
of
like
course,
talk about the Nigerian princes who have no access to water. The reason is that they make sure that you have no access to water unless you
of
buy it for the same
yes.
price as Coca-Cola, which is crazy to me. I think that gets
It's
that's been
good.
going on for a long time. It's got to stop. It's got to
It's
stop.
good. A lot of things.
That's legit. Well, I don't know. Is there anything else that you wanted to also make sure that I covered? And also anybody there, if you guys have any super chat questions you want to ask Abiza about Nigeria, now's the
Uh,
time. I did get your Mpox
I'm,
question in.
I'm so grateful for the conversation. I really do appreciate you a lot, and I thank you. I know I'm not there yet, but definitely you'll be rewarded, and I will do my best to keep you in mind. Seriously.
Bro, what I got a plan for you. What we're gonna do is get you one of those like Scottish Lord titles. Do you know what I'm talking about? So what they
Uh,
do is you buy it's called like the Scottish Lord become a Scottish Lord. Okay, so you establish a title. So what we do is you get a yard of land, like 3 feet, a meter or so of land in Scotland. costs like $20 or something like that, and then they send you a title that you're a lord. So then all of a sudden you're not just the African prince, you're also the Scottish Lord African prince. So then once
Yeah.
we got that going for you, the next thing to
Yeah.
do is we get you a carbon credit system, because this is the thing I saw that
Yeah.
seems like the best deal. They've got these elite that are making all this money off selling carbon credits. So we
Yeah.
established something in a conservation in Nigeria where you're selling carbon credits to Coca-Cola or Nestle or something like that. And it's just because there's a huge chunk of land that's only being used for keeping animals alive or something like that. And in exchange
Yeah.
for that, they have to give you like $100,000 a year, right?
Wow.
And this is something that the elite
That
do
is
because they figure
that is
out how to
good.
get their own money. Yeah, they do this all the time. Coca-Cola, Pepsi, these companies, they're doing this all. Daewoo did this in Madagascar, and it started a major war in 2008. Andre Realinga, there was a riot, a civil war unrest, and he took over the country because they were about to. They took like 100-mile chunks of land, and they were going to put 200-year leases on the land to this Korean company so that no one could use it for 200 years except for this Korean company. So then the people rioted, right? So I think the answer probably is like figure out what the elite are doing to exploit you and then do that. Like use those systems. Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. I really agree with you. Like finding out what the elite do to survive, not to use it the way they are using it anyway, but at least you use it in a good way because I'm particular. I just want to survive, and
$20 for Abiza for Maurice. God help
uh,
Africa. Thank you,
I'm
Maurice.
grateful. I'm grateful. I mean, I just want to survive. I love philosophy. I am a graduate of philosophy. My dream was to further my education and one day maybe become a scholar, a lecturer of philosophy. But right now, this is I finished my study in the year 2018. This is 2024. And the dream, the more I chase it, the more elusive it becomes. Imagine somebody trying to survive. You will not be thinking of furthering your education because you have to survive first before you further your education. I remember when we met in 2020, I was talking about I needed a scholarship to travel and but with time, I begin to think that that is not all there is. There are so many things. There are so many ways I can make impact in my own community. It's not all about traveling abroad. So it's not just me traveling abroad anymore, but at least I need to make impact. And the way for me to make impact is that if I can survive and engage myself, even if it is online study, I can do this to boost my CV and have a recognition. I like writing. Even if I'm not so proficient in English, but I can learn and I can learn and improve. I believe I can do that.
Feel like you're
And
quite proficient. I don't even think most of the Americans use the word proficiency. You're doing all right. Don't worry.
so,
You should definitely keep writing, though. The things you write are incredible.
yeah. But again, I must appreciate you because for 4 days now I've been at home because I don't have transport. Because of the increment in the price of petrol, the transport people they have increased their transport fare and all that, which have affected me. But I really appreciate you so far, and I'm very grateful. I'm very grateful. To be honest, I cannot express how grateful I am to you. I must be grateful, and I'm indebted to you forever. I'm really happy to be here with you, and I appreciate.
Bro, I love you. I know that you're living in a crazy world. It's amazing that you're alive, and I keep praying that you stay well. And I know that you've been through a lot of things, and it's really interesting how com- content maybe or you keep a certain level of joy like through all of these things, right? And I think
Yeah,
that's really inspiring.
yeah, I thank you. I appreciate. I mean, for the dollars that I've seen on the platform sent to me, I really appreciate. I thank all the people who have contributed so far. I don't know if they can hear me, but I really thank you and appreciate you. And I believe that you will find people who also meet your need in one way or the other, in different ways, in different aspects of your life. So I appreciate everybody. I'm grateful. Thank you. And I'll be praying for you people tonight for, making an impact in a poor boy who doesn't have anything to really offer you. You are not expecting anything. I think this is a pure giving, and you will definitely reap your reward. Thank you so much, everybody. Thank you.
I was being quiet there. I'll also put the Bitcoin wallet address in the description, but it's right there on the comment there if you guys have Bitcoin and you want to go through that, like, because you know how the world works. While the rest of the economies are shifting up and down, the dollar's freaking
Yeah,
out, and Nigerian money's doing the same thing it always does. Seems to me, whatever you think about Bitcoin, she be stable. You know what I mean?
of
Like,
course,
there's something to
of
that.
course, of
Getting some good
course.
messages for you too. God bless you, Abiza. Some pretty base
Thank
people.
you, thank you. I appreciate it.
Corsarito, when you hear a guy with a Sicilian sounding name say I can lend you money,
Yeah,
I always get a little concerned, but I love you anyway. I appreciate the idea.
thank you. Thank you
And
so much.
let's put on that Africa song.
Yeah. Thank you for
Want
the
to know man sees while I